Everything you need to know about the Vigo Dem Party. So sit back, relax, and watch from anywhere. Get ready for a chat with the chair.
I'm Joe Etling, Chair of the Vigo County Democratic Central Committee, and welcome to the award-winning Chat with the Chair. We're so delighted you could join us. Hope you're staying cool out there. These are the dog days of summer, very warm. We had an awesome time at the Vigo County Fair. Hope you had an opportunity to get out and enjoy the beautiful festivities of the fair. We had a great time. We're so glad that Kendall could join us. So we've had numerous requests for her to come back to chat with us, so we'll see if we can do that, although I think we're going to have some particular food involved to get her back. But she did a great job and survived all the great fair food. So again, we appreciate everybody's indulgence of that great event at the fair, and we are delighted you could join us because we have an awesome show tonight. We've got a great guest, a new guest on the chat. Tell our viewers who you are.
My name is Johnny Vaughn, and I'm a candidate for Vigo County Prosecutor.
Well, Johnny, you are a native to Terre Haute and Vigo County, and so tell our viewers a little about your background.
I grew up born and raised right here in Terre Haute, Indiana, never left. I've attended Vigo County schools all the way through, graduated from McLean, and here I sit with you.
So for those of our viewers that don't know about McLean, talk to us about what McLean is and how it was, if you don't mind, you matriculated there.
McLean was an alternative high school. It was perceived for bad kids. I guess you could say kids that got expelled from other schools and kids that had misfits, and that was me. I wasn't really clicking at North, where I spent one trimester, and then I kind of followed my sister along to McLean, and that's kind of how I got there. And McLean doesn't live up to his reputation. It was great in every way possible. It helped me tremendously, and I'm actually quite sad to see it not around anymore.
So Johnny, could you talk to us about where you grew up in Terre Haute and a little bit about your family?
I grew up right off 5th and Locust. It's now tore down, but it's right by where the projects were and still are. And my family, well, they're kind of hard to describe on both sides. Mostly felons and convicts, and that's kind of how I came to become a lawyer, because I grew up in an environment where breaking the law was perceived as kind of a good thing, and I was raised that it actually wasn't. So that is how I found my way to law school, because I actually wanted to help the people that I grew up with and grew around, and including down to my own parents. So that's kind of how I got here.
Now, you have an interesting outlook about McLean. Why don't you talk to our viewers a little about that? Once again, some people may not have been familiar with what McLean offered, but you're talking about not only the opportunities it presented to you, but how it uniquely prepared you for what you're doing now.
Well, the class sizes were small, and they offered, I guess, customizable hours for students. You could come in at 9, leave at 2:30 if you needed to. And the environment there was very particularized, and you got to know your classmates really well because you had the same teachers, the same classmates over and over and over again. And just that kind of environment just kind of made me thrive and actually made me grow more than I think I would have otherwise. Because when you have the same teacher for 5 different subjects, you get to really know that teacher and they get to really know you. And you get to form a bond with them that I don't know if you could form otherwise.
Did you have anyone at McLean that you particularly developed a mentor relationship with?
There was actually 2 or 3 of them, actually. I actually work with one now, and Miss Ellis. She works at the Public Defender's Office as a parent advocate. And there's Matt Christiansen, who I'm still in contact with. And then there's kind of my savior, Mr. Hawley. He took his time out of lunch because I failed physics my second to last trimester, and he taught me during lunch so I could graduate on time.
Well,
and those 3 forever, they was great teachers, and I will forever be thankful for them.
and so after you graduated from McLean, talk about what your path has been education-wise.
I went to Ivy Tech for a year and did my year, but I could transfer to ISU. And then I went to ISU for 3 years, and I graduated with a bachelor's in economics and a minor in political science. And then from there, I traversed my way to IU McKinney School of Law.
That's great. So throughout the time that you were in college, you were working and paying your way through. Is that right?
Yes.
Talk about some of the things you were doing work-wise.
Work-wise, I spent a lot of time at FSA Counseling Center as a work study there. And that was a really unique experience because I got to actually kind of get my feel for the first real professionalism, in a sense. And then I also interned at the Indiana State Senate, and then I also did some other campaign work during that time.
And FSA is a Family Services Association?
Yes, sir, yes.
What do you think one of the primary things you took away from that experience?
First and foremost, confidentiality is key. No, I just learned that people are in need of help. Even if you can't see it on their face behind the scenes, people are in need of help. And it's important to help those people because they come there and sometimes they're just hanging on by thin ice, and their FSA is there to help them.
Now, as you worked your way through Indiana State, at some point did you decide law school was the path you wanted to take, or was that a plan going into college?
I determined I wanted to go to law school around my first semester at Ivy Tech, actually. And there, I kind of set the path forward through my studies and everything. I didn't know what I was going to major in at that time. I just knew I wanted to go to law school. And then I got interested in economics and politics in general. And that's kind of how I picked economics, and then political science, of course. But I actually didn't know what I was going to do for like 6 weeks until I entered Ivy Tech, and then I was like, okay, this is kind of what I want to do, and kind of laid out a plan to get it done.
Now, was that a pathway that you had always considered when you first were graduating from McLean to go on to college, or was there consideration just to go into the workforce?
There was actually a lot of pressure to go to college from my dad and my sister at that time. It kind of wasn't an option not to go to college, at least for an associate's degree. So I knew I was going to go to college. I just didn't know what for at that time.
Now, had a number of your members of the family been to college?
No, I am actually the first in my family with a bachelor's degree, and the first to go to law school, of course. There's been other members that have an associate's degree, but I was the first to get a bachelor's degree.
Now, notwithstanding you were the first, that was still an important thing from your father's perspective that you complete that. Can you talk about that and why that was so important to him for you to do that?
My dad was raised in a blue-collar family, as was my mom. But my dad was always kind of an outlier because he was smart in a sense. He's actually pretty smart, and he just wanted a better life for me and my sister that none of my family ever had. And he thought education was the way to get that life, and he was right.
That's a good lesson for so many people, and that's something I'm sure you're going to pass along to your children someday. So as you sought to go on to college, you actually had a little bit of a roadblock that led you to Ivy Tech, isn't that right? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, McLean wasn't the best for preparing students for the SATs or college in general. Their thing was, let's just get these kids through school, and I can't blame them for that because the population there is kind of what they did. So I had no help on the SATs. I took it once without any prep, and I actually don't even know what my score was because I didn't know how to get my score back. So I just went to Ivy Tech so I didn't have to take the SATs, and even though I did take them, I just didn't know what my score was. But I went to Ivy Tech, completed the transfer program, and that was the biggest hurdle because up to that point, actually up until 6 months until I graduated high school, I wasn't even focusing on that. My dad was pushing it, but I was just one ear out the other. And then I'm like, oh my God, I graduate in 6 months. I have no idea what I'm going to do after that. And then I really got in gear and kind of started hitting the books and getting serious about my life. And Ivy Tech was there to kind of transition me into the big university, which I'm grateful for.
And at Indiana State, you really applied yourself to your studies and performed well there academically, and that allowed you then to get accepted to law school. Is that right?
Absolutely. ISU is a great school with great professors, and in the economics and political science program, their teachers are really hands-on and really help you a lot. If you have questions, their office hours are almost always open, and they always answer your questions, and I took advantage of that a lot. I went to my professor's office so much just to ask random questions about things I didn't get, and that really even motivated me more because I knew they was there to help me. If I had any questions, any problems at all, they was there to help me get through it, and I credit that to my success as well, because there wasn't one time I had a question that none of my professors didn't answer.
Seems as though there's a fair number of young people that are looking for college choices that think that maybe the grass is greener somewhere else and look to other universities that are still state institutions but yet in other communities. What would you say to those people given your experience with Indiana State and how it might really be a real gem here in Terre Haute that the natives need to look closely at?
I would say that it is a really, really good school with really great professors. Now, if I had to do it over again, I would go to ISU again, just because it's in our backyard. It is Terre Haute's own.
Yes.
And I don't think there's anything more important than supporting our own. And ISU supported me, and I will support it again. It helped me tremendously. The growth, the opportunities it gave me. My internships was all for credited. I would recommend ISU for anything.
That's great. And so with regard to then matriculated to law school at McKinney School of Law, talk about what that was like and the process getting into law school, and then how much different that was from the academic work you had in college.
Getting into law school was stressful. It was being a lawyer is stressful, but getting into law school was super stressful. I think the LSAT was harder than the bar exam.
Is that right?
I think so. And I don't know if I was psyching myself out or what, but the LSAT I studied so much for that, and it was just so aggravating because you would do really well, then you would get another fact pattern, and you didn't do as well. And you would just rehammer it over and over again. And when I got into law school, the hardest thing for me was the cold calling, because they call on you. You have to be prepared, and you don't know exactly when you're going to get called on or what it's going to be about. In undergrad, you can kind of just float through. Unless you raise your hand, nobody's going to call on you. In law school, the teacher will point you out and make you talk about the case at hand. If you don't know the facts of the case, I've seen people get reamed out, and I did not want to be one of those.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest difference from law school to undergrad, was just that pressure of knowing that there's 60 other people in my class, and I could be the one picked on that day, so I better have done my homework that day.
So that Socratic method was a little new to you from the standpoint of what you might have experienced either in high school or college, I take it?
Absolutely. At McLean, it was the students rarely got engaged. At ISU, it was the students that wanted to be engaged. In law school, you have to be engaged, or they're going to make you be engaged, or sometimes they'll kick you out if you're not.
Of course, at that point, you were pretty much locked in with your studies from college, and so that carried over to law school, and even more so, I assume, as far as the number of hours you were spending studying, preparing for class, and for all the things associated with law school.
Yes, I credit the cold calling in law school to actually why I memorized so many facts, because I did not want to be that kid, that student that got called on and didn't know the case. So I would study and read the case over and over again and hypothesize the situations that might happen, and that process really made the law stick in my head. And it's just that method of just, okay, you're kind of scared straight, because I could be called on today, and if I don't know these facts, this teacher is going to ride me the rest of the semester. And that is something I did not want. So that is something that I took very seriously and made sure I read all the case law and did all the hypotheticals they gave us, just to make sure if I was the one called on, I was not going to look like a fool.
And Johnny, when you talked about the LSAT, we might go back a moment for our viewers and any of their family or friends that are thinking about law school. Tell them about the LSAT, when that's offered generally for people, and maybe any pointers that you might have for them in preparing for that.
I believe the LSAT is offered 2 or 3 times a year. I think it's offered in the summer, the fall, and the winter, beginning of the year. And my pointers are just to stick with it. It is daunting, and it can be exhausting, and definitely intimidating, but you just have to stick with it. And the there's 3 different sections. You got the logic game section, you have the reading comprehension session, and then you have some analytical session where you get a little small fact pattern and you have to answer the questions with it. But it's kind of like, if not this, then that type things. And my advice is just to study until you can't study anymore. Kind of like I did for the bar. You just do all the questions you can get your hands on, and just do not be intimidated when you take that first practice exam. You realize, okay, I am not where I need to be, because you will get there eventually. It's daunting at first, but you just have to keep trucking it, and eventually you'll get to the score you need.
And so after you received your degree, you sat for the bar exam. Talk to our viewers about that and how stressful that is and how that went for you.
Well, the bar exam I took was kind of during COVID. It was post-COVID, but we're still taking COVID precautions. So I took it at home with the webcam watching me. The full bar exam, except I just have a webcam just staring at me and watching every move I got. And they had the playback, so if there's any foul play of anybody, they could just watch the camera again. And that, I think, was kind of took advantage of because I was in my own home. I wasn't in a room full of 50 people. It was just me and my computer and a webcam and somebody watching me. But studying for that stress was only second to the LSAT. I'm still actually amazed that I passed it. I was more counting on failing it than passing it, honestly, because I put in so much work, and it's just one of those things you can't believe it's going to happen. Like, you went through law school, you got your degree, and you're like, okay, this is the final step. I have to do this. If I don't pass the bar, what do I go to law school for? Right. And that pressure was enormous, but it also kind of motivated me because, okay, this is the whole shebang. This is the Super Bowl of law school. I have to excel at this. And that pressure kind of made me stay up midnight, 1 o'clock every night just doing practice questions. Even on my phone, I'd be laying in bed, and because they have apps you can do like practice questions on. Okay. I would just do those questions over and over and over again. I think I did around 2,000, 2,500 multiple choice questions just to make sure I know the law and the fact patterns they're going to bring at me. And that itself was something I never want to go through again. If I ever move to a state that doesn't, where my law school, my bar, my license ain't transferred, I don't think I'm going to move to that state.
I'm sure your family had to be elated in addition to your elation over passing the bar exam.
Yeah, my mom and dad were ecstatic, and my sister was ecstatic, and they was more ecstatic than I was, actually, because I couldn't believe it. One of those things where, like, okay, I see where I'm reading it, where I passed, but I'm like, this can't be right. There has to be some kind of error. Somebody messed up somewhere that wasn't me. And to this day, I still haven't got my scores back, because I'm scared to ask for them.
So after you got the good news, then what steps did you take with regard to your career?
I jumped right into practice. I jumped right into, I guess, my own firm, so to speak. I just took cases on my own, and that was stress I wouldn't recommend on nobody.
So they consider that just hanging up your shingle? Is that what you did? That's
exactly what I did. And the stress that brought I can't even describe the stress that brought, because you're for the first time you're introducing yourself to clients, you're getting familiar with the court system here, you're learning the local rules, you're learning this, because in law school they mostly teach you federal, so you have to kind of learn the state laws again. And then going to the courtroom for the first time, because I didn't really have like an advisor or nobody telling me what to do, so I just would go in there and just kind of do what I thought was best, and it worked out so far.
Well, that's great. So you also, somewhere along the line, got a little bit of a political bug. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, my political bug came around 2013, 2014. Okay. And I've just been enthused with politics since then. There's not been a year I haven't looked over the data, watched campaign speeches, even just going back and looking at old campaign ads from the old presidential races, just as far back as they go. It's just something that really intrigued me, and it's really important to our everyday life, and that's what really kind of kicked it in for me.
And so you had an opportunity to put your name on the ballot yourself. Of course, a lot of people talk about doing it, and you did it. That's got to be quite a daunting task as well.
Yes, that is exciting and terrifying at the same time. When I voted for myself, it was one of those other surreal moments. Like, I can't believe I'm actually voting for myself, let alone for prosecutor. Yeah. Because Running for prosecutor to me is everything I went to school for. You're helping people. You're making change. And to me, that is what I went to law school for.
So you're the Democrat nominee, came through the May primary, and now you're on the ballot, out campaigning, and let's talk about what your platform is for the prosecutors of Eagle County.
Well, my number one priority is giving Vigo County a full-time prosecutor. There should be a voice in the courthouse that's an elected voice by the people. And if I become your prosecutor, I will be in the courthouse. I will be accessible. I will be at every initial bond hearing for in the 4, 5 felony courts there are. I will be in all those initial hearings to make my face known to the public that I am here if you want to talk to me. If you have an issue about something, I am here. And I'm your elected official. I'm the elected prosecutor. Talk to me. And I will gladly take the time to talk to everybody that has an issue with anything when it comes to criminal justice.
Talk about what you think your best attributes with regard to the position of prosecutor of Eagle County are.
My best attribute came through my life experience, and that is understanding that the system's not perfect and people make mistakes. I've personally watched my house get raided 3 times by the local task force, drug task force, and people change. Just because you commit the crime doesn't mean you should be looked down upon. It doesn't mean that you're the scum of the earth that some people think you are. It's important to have a leader in the prosecutor's office that understands that and has lived through that. I'm in a very unique position. I don't know many attorneys that grew up the way I did, and I think that is my number one attribute, is just the ability to understand and comprehend that there's 2 sides to the cases, the states and, well, the criminal defense attorneys, but the defendant. You have to weigh those. You can't just say, okay, I'm the state and these are our interests. Well, the defendant's interests are just as important, and you have to just weigh those out, and I am in a very unique position to do that.
So talk about what's going on with Johnny Vaughn for prosecutor campaign.
Well, I've been extremely busy. It's extremely exhausting and extremely exciting. I'm out talking to voters. I'm out trying to meet as many people as I can and learn as much as I can. And that's the number one thing I think is key during this campaign, is just meeting with the public and learning what their input is.
And what's been your feedback that you've received?
I've received good feedback. Most people think that we should have a full-time prosecutor in Vigo County, and they want a voice and a person and a face that's seen in the courtroom.
So, of course, as you've been involved in politics, of course, historically, these campaigns don't seem to get started till Labor Day, but no, you were down at the Vigo County Fair, and as were candidates for many offices. So how has that changed, and how do things look forward for you for the coming weeks and months?
Yeah, I know the Vigo County Democrats are on it this election cycle, and we're all in it to win it. And I think it's going to stay that way. Stay busy, stay motivated, and just keep campaigning as hard as we possibly can.
So any events that you want to talk to our viewers about that come up with your campaign, or any thoughts about your campaign that you want to share with our viewers?
Yeah, well, I do plan on having bi-weekly get-togethers with any supporters that want to come out and help me, and we'll go knock on doors, make phone calls, anything that they want to do, whether it's just put a yard sign in, they can contact me that way. And the second thing is that I just want to work with the community, and I want the community to work with me. And so any supporters or anybody that wants to talk to me can message me on Facebook, follow me on Facebook, Johnny Vaughn for Prosecutor, or johnnyvaughn.com, and I will talk to anybody. And if somebody wants to help me, I will absolutely appreciate your help fully.
Now, as you alluded to earlier, I would say that you don't have the most traditional path to becoming a lawyer based on your background. How do you view that to be an asset, and how do you sometimes view that to be a liability?
It's a liability because I didn't have the training or the ability of a white-collar family, I guess. I come from a very blue-collar family, and that's an asset because I relate to the everyday people. I relate to the Vigo County citizens more so than I think a lot of other lawyers can, just because I've lived right beside them. I went to McLean, and we kind of prosper together, I guess. I mean, the ability to be able to talk to 5 different types of people, 10 different types of people is very important. And I can do that. And that's because of my upbringing, because I can relate to what they're going through, and I can relate to the struggles that they're having.
So if you think back, was there any particular event or particular person that led you to the law, you think?
Besides yourself?
Well.
No, it was mainly just the notion that there's injustices in the world and the prosecutor can start changes in the criminal justice system. We should be at the forefront of making changes and helping the criminal justice become a better system than it is. And that is kind of more of a whole idea that led me to it than a specific person, but it's the idea that the prosecutor holds somebody's fate in their hands. And that's an important power to have. And you have to be willing to understand the other side of that coin.
But even going back further, just about your aspirations to be a lawyer, a practicing lawyer, was there any particular person as you went through your journey that inspired you or encouraged you not only to go to college but then to go on to law school and to practice law?
I wouldn't say there's a professional that did that. It was more so my dad and the struggles he went through and what I saw with my own 2 eyes. I didn't really look up to very many people. It was just that, okay, this is what I think I should do, and that's what I did.
So you've given our viewers information about how to contact you, where they might see you, any places that you might be on your schedule upcoming where our viewers could come meet Johnny Vaughn.
Well, I am at the farmer's market almost every Saturday morning from 8 to noon. I go out there and they have some amazing products out there. And you might just see me in your neighborhood, just walking around, just canvassing. And if you do, feel free to stop me and say hi and discuss whatever's on your mind.
That's awesome. Any other thoughts for our viewers, Johnny, that we haven't covered tonight?
Yeah, I just want to say that I want to thank everybody who has considered voting for me, and even just people that follow my page or share something. That helps more than I think they know.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you coming in to chat with us tonight. How's the blazer rate on your rating scale?
You're the only one that could pull that blazer off.
There you have it. See, he's a true politician. He can spin it just like that. So we appreciate Johnny Vaughn coming in to join us this evening. We would also, as he asked, that you like us, share us, do all those kinds of things that you're supposed to do with social media. Still sorting that all out, but we hope that everybody is hydrating, staying cool, and taking care of themselves. And we appreciate you tuning in and joining us. Until our next chat, I'm Joe Etling. God bless you all. Have a great night.
MOCRATIC. Everything you need to know about the Vigo Dem Party. So sit back, relax, and watch from anywhere. Get ready for a chat with a chair.